Thank you so much for joining us today. Our program will start in just a moment as people are continuing to log in.
Are you listening? You don't want to come over here and watch us? No. Yeah, you can hear me. I'm going to go to the bathroom.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to welcome everyone to Jewish National Fund's Women for Israel virtual program, How to Be Positive in a Negative World with Jeanne Bernstein. For those of you who are new to Jewish National Fund USA, you probably know of our work planting trees and making the desert bloom. We do so much more. We build medical facilities, housing infrastructure, parks, schools, and help people with disabilities. We also support economic development initiatives that pave the way for hundreds of thousands of Israelis to move from the crowded center of the country to the Negev and Galilee. The format of today's program will only allow participants to see the featured speakers. All participants are muted and are unable to unmute themselves. However, during the program, you can submit questions to the speaker through the Q&A button. This program will be recorded. Now I turn the program over to Adriennes Message, Women for Israel Chair for Orange County, California, and she sits on the Disability Task Force.
Unmute.
Hi, everyone. I'm Adriennes Message, a proud chair of Women for Israel, a member of the Disabilities Task Force, Century Council, President Society, Circle of Sapphire at JNF. Needless to say, I'm a huge JNF supporter. I want to thank you so much for joining this call. Every gift made to the Women's Campaign this month will be matched up to $1 million. In such unpredictable times as today, I'm proud to say that JNF was there yesterday. We're there today and we'll be there tomorrow. Thank you again to this phenomenal group of women who are critical to the success of Women for Israel. Today, I have the honor to introduce one of my closest and dearest friends, Jeanne Bernstein. There's so much I can say about Jeanne, but I have to keep this short and sweet because we really want to hear from her. Most importantly, she's a mom, wife, daughter, sister, and philanthropist. Jeanne is one of the only people I know who could have taken the tragedy of her son's murder and turned it into a movement with her husband, Gideon. To be able to show others how even in the face of tragedy and loss, there's something better to concentrate on rather than bitterness, revenge, self-pity, and regret. Jeanne and Gideon want to embrace love, tolerance, and kindness, to do good. Their goal was to repair our broken world one child at a time. It continues to be their goal, to repair the world through one act of kindness, one day at a time. Please welcome Jeanne Bernstein. Thank you, Jeanne.
Thank you for having me. I am so honored to be here, to be chosen by JNF as one of your speakers this year. I really love doing these speeches and being able to touch people's lives and to hopefully make a difference and to leave a lasting impression. So I want to just thank you. Today we're here because, not just because you want to hear my story, of course, but because you are supporting a cooking school in Israel, in the Galilee, the Galil Cooking School, which my family was excited to learn was the project here because my son loved cooking. It was something that he did for pleasure when he was young that we did together and we enjoyed as a family. And then it ended up being a big part of his life. As he went to school, he became the editor of the University of Pennsylvania's cooking magazine, which was called aptly named Pen Appetit. And he, I don't know how much, I'm going to assume that you didn't know a lot about my son before today. So I'll tell you what he was like and why he was so special and why we continue to promote his legacy. He was a really unique human being from the beginning, extremely intelligent, very challenging, and he was curious about the world, and he was very creative. He loved to create things. He loved to write. He went to the University of Pennsylvania to write originally. He was asked to come there by their writing program, and he was very involved in that, even though he was a scientist. He also went there and was in their advanced molecular sciences program. And the idea was that he would be going to medical school one day. He was in his second year of school, and he was doing really well there. He was really happy. He had just moved into a new apartment, and I mean, he had moved into it maybe 3 days before he came home for the holidays at the end of 2017. He came home. He was really excited to see us because we did not see him at all that semester. He didn't even come home for Thanksgiving that year. He stayed at school, and a friend went and stayed with him there. So getting him home was really great because we were all ready to spend time. We were really looking forward to it as a family being together. He came home, and the first week was quiet. It was peaceful. We had delayed having our family Hanukkah party so that he could participate, and we waited until he got home. So we had a big family get together for Hanukkah that year, and then New Year's came, and we spent New Year's Eve with him. And then after New Year's, he had made contact with somebody that he went to school with in high school. And I think, I don't know how much detail I should be going into here, but he ended up meeting somebody on January 2nd, someone that I did not know, my husband did not know, we did not know he was going to meet them, and he didn't come home that night. The next day, it took me several hours to figure out that he had disappeared. And part of all of the strange things that happened, one of the strange things was that actually on January 2nd, I went to Costco with Blaze that day, and we had become separated. I asked him why his location services were not on his phone anymore, because we had always required the children to have that up and running on their phones so that we could always know where they were. Even when he was in college, we tracked him while he was away at school. And he told me that he had just taken it off because the location services off because it wasn't working well on the phone that I had just given him. I had just given him my old phone, and he said it just didn't work properly. And he said, I'm an adult now. I don't need you following my every move. I'm fine. I really don't need it. So I didn't argue with him because I thought, well, maybe he is old enough. Maybe he is mature enough. He was 19 years old. He'd been living on his own for a year. I thought maybe it's time. So I didn't make a big deal about it. But that night, he did disappear that night, strangely. And the next day, we could not figure out where he was because he had taken those location services off, and it took us a while to figure it out. When we knew something was wrong that night, we made contact with law enforcement. My husband and I were able to get onto Blaze's electronics that were left at the house because he had left his personal computer open. And I remembered that some of his passwords were saved in the key on my phone, because he had used my phone before to access some of these websites. So long story short, if somebody uses your phone and enters in a password, it can be saved onto your phone and you can access it later. So I was able to use that information with my husband. We were able to get onto the computers and we were able to figure out who he had been with that night. And we were able to give that information to law enforcement. Following that, we were hopeful that we would be able to find him, that he would be alive when he was found. There was a massive national search for Blaze. There were local searches done in the area surrounding our home, which was at the time a wilderness area, and nothing turned up in the first week. But then about a week later, they did find his body in the park that was next to his school and less than a mile from our home. Following that, a man was arrested and charged with his murder. And he was also charged with a hate crime. And for those of you that are not aware of it, my son was gay, and it was not something that he was very comfortable with. So we didn't really know very much about how we never really talked a lot about it with him. He wasn't very open about it, but I did have an opportunity to talk to him about it and tell him that I was very supportive of it before this happened. So he did know that we were it did not bother us at all, and that we were very supportive of him. So he knew that. But he was really he was 19 and he was really coming to terms with it still. Anyway, the person that was charged with his murder was affiliated with the neo-Nazi group Adam Waffen, which has very recently been designated as a terrorist organization. And he will have a criminal trial at some point. When all of this was happening, when we had a lot of media attention on us, and we were given a platform many times by local news agencies, by the Los Angeles Times, by local television shows. I was on with my husband. I think we were on LA Today, or one of these morning talk shows. I was on there a couple of times, once with my husband. Anyway, at that time, we were able to discuss what our plans were for the future. And my husband and I decided that the best reason for us to stay in the focus of the media was that we could take the attention off of the negativity of what had happened. And we could redirect the public to the great life that Blaze had and his legacy. And Blaze's legacy was one of repairing the world. We were pretty clear with Blaze that we expected him to do some really great things with his life. And becoming a doctor was something that he was looking to do, because he knew that doing something worthwhile with his time, with his life, above and beyond his love of cooking, he knew that he needed to do something that would make this world a better place, and that could improve the human condition. That was something that it was just a value of our family, and he was really on board with that. Blaze had been bullied a lot as a young person, not just because he was gay, although kids would call him gay on the bus, he told me, and bully him. And it was really hard. And that started when he was probably in about middle school. Blaze was really was a super kind and caring young man. And I think that part of that came from the fact that he had suffered so much from bullying as a youngster. And I was always, at the school battling for him when I would find out about these things. But at some point, Blaze decided that he didn't want my help, because it was embarrassing to him to have his mom getting involved in his troubles. So he probably stopped telling me about all of the things that happened when he was in middle school. I mean, after about the 8th grade. And we had quite a few incidents that weren't great in terms of him being scared at school or physically assaulted at school, riding the bus. It was all around very difficult for him being in public school. So following probably around that time, we looked into alternative places for him for his education, and we discovered that he could get into an art school. And so he applied to and was accepted into the Orange County School of the Arts, which still is one of the best high schools in the country. And he loved it there. He really thrived. And that's when he discovered his love of creative writing was there at OSHA. So I'm talking about this because he was very creative, and that was a big part of who Blaze was. But he was also great at science. I mean, he was a tremendous chemist, and he was part of the reason why OSHA was able to beat Troy High School, which had always been the #1 in the chemistry decathlon or chemistry Olympiad. They had always been #1, and Blaze and his partner actually beat Troy High School for the first time ever the year that Blaze was on the chemistry Olympiad. So Blaze was super gifted in chemistry, particularly, and math, and kind of had both sides of the brain working at all times. I think he kind of stuck out because of that too. And anyway, let's move on a little bit so that I can tell you more about what happened and how we were able to kind of change everything from this very negative, sad story to focus more on the positivity and the positive things that could come from it. I just want to make sure we're good on time still. Basically, when everything happened, as I was saying, and we were given the opportunity to take the focus away from the man that was being charged with his murder, who is also was about Blaze's age at the time, about 20 years old. We took it and we decided that there was a lot that we could be doing to change the narrative and make this more about something positive. How do we be more positive in a negative world? Well, I think you just have to think about that, even like the subject matter today. Is this a negative world that we live in? I mean, is that how you see it? I don't see it that way, even though I have been through, and my family has been through one of the most devastating events of a lifetime in the last couple of years. I still don't see the world as a negative place. I think that the world is made of a lot of incredible things and incredible people. And when this was happening to us, and we had so much love and so many good, kind people came to help us, and they still help us to this day. We both saw, and we both knew, my husband and I, that there are many more kind people in this world and many more good people than there are evil people in this world. I mean, that's pretty clear. I think we can all agree on that. And you have to be able to really, when these things are happening, you have to take stock of what you have and what there is in your life. I guess you have to see your life as full and not as empty. You have to look at what you have and not what is missing. And I think that my husband and I have always focused our attention on the things that are good in our lives. And we've tried not to focus on the negative. Of course, you can't really help that when you are dealing with the death of a child. It has become the focus of every day of my life since it happened. I think about Blaze constantly throughout every day, and I probably will for the rest of my life. But I never focus on what happened on that one day of his life when it ended. I try not to think about that at all. I try just to think about the memories and the happy times and the good times that we had. And that's my choice. I choose to think about the positive things, and I choose to make this a narrative about 20 years or 19 years that I had with this young man, with this child, developing him and helping him grow, that was a gift that was given to me. And I will always see it that way, that the time that I had with him was a gift. And I wish I could have more of it, but it's not going to happen in this lifetime. Maybe there's another universe out there where he's alive and well and I'm with him, but here, he's not here anymore. So we have to just make the best of what is left of this life. And there's a lot to do. There's so much to do. And we've been doing so much, and I would love to tell you all about it, but we're running out of time already. But the way that we came up with Blaze It Forward, and if you haven't been on the Facebook public group, Blaze It Forward, you really should check it out because it's a place of positivity. And it started as a place where we looked for Blaze and clues about where Blaze may have ended up. And it ended up becoming a place where people could report the kind things that they are doing in their communities all over the world. So we love going on there and seeing the great things that people do. It makes us really happy when we see those things. And that is a public group on Facebook called Blaze It Forward. So that's really been a great source of happiness for us through all of it. And again, focusing on positivity and taking the focus away from the crime and more refocusing it on the things that we have power over, the things that we can change, and the things that we can repair. So that's really part of basically been, my husband and I have both always been very concerned with taking positive action towards changing the world, making it better. My husband's been involved, and I've supported his involvement in our local community foundation and the Jewish Community Foundation of Orange County. So that was always a really big part of our upbringing of the children. They knew that my husband was very involved in philanthropy, and we've always been very focused on that. So it was really a natural thing for us to create the Blaze It Forward website to encourage people to do intentional acts of kindness, to stay positive. And we've used the Blaze Memorial Fund, which we established, to do many great things. We've given away college scholarships. We endowed the University of Pennsylvania. We've endowed the Jewish Community Center with their own culinary school named after Blaze, and so many other things. I could talk about it for a really long time, but I'd like you to be able to ask questions. And I think that maybe we'll just go and do that. And we'll move to questions. And if we have any extra time, I can tell you more about the things we're doing. But I will say that I hope that you will support the building of the school in the Galilee, the Galil Culinary Institute. We are donating money to it from the Blaze Memorial Fund, which is custodied at the Jewish Community Foundation of Orange County. And we are delighted to be part of that. So I'm going to turn it back over to the moderator.
Jeannie, it's Adrienne. Thank you so much for sharing with us. It's so important to hear the message that you have to say about Blaze and blazing it forward. I have a question for you, and it's a question that it's in regards to you and your family. From this tragedy, you and your family have achieved so much in so little time. What is your message to other families experiencing grief right now?
Well, one of the pieces of advice that was given to me in the beginning about grief is that it's kind of like a cup full of tea, and you have to drink it all eventually, but you don't have to drink it all at once. You can just have a little bit at a time. So I think that was really good advice for me, because it was really hard for me to, I guess, to really feel those emotions in the beginning, because I was really afraid that if I allowed myself to really start grieving, I would not be able to get through the first part of the year, when it really required a lot of my attention to make sure that we had got everything done that we needed to do to protect Blaze's legacy. And also because we were working with law enforcement a lot in the very beginning. So that was a hard thing for me. But for other families that are grieving, you can't do it all at once. It does take a long time to get through grief. I'm still grieving, and we're 2.5 years through, and I I don't have a time limit on it. I think it could be forever, just the way it is.
Thank you, Jeannie. We don't have time for additional questions. And I know that people will be able to get in touch with you if they have additional questions. I just have to say it's so special to have you here to speak with everyone, and thank you very much. I am going to turn it over now to Nina Paul, who is also Women for Israel. So thank you, Nina.
Thank you. And thank you, Jeannie, for sharing your heartfelt and moving story. I'm sure there's not a dry eye out there right now. I am Nina Paul. I am the immediate past president of the Women for Israel campaign. And I'm a member of a proud member of the World Chairman Council as well. And believe it or not, I've been a volunteer with Jewish National Fund actively for 35 years. And I can't tell you how much I empathize, sympathize, and relate to you and your story, Ablaze, because I too, unfortunately, lost a son 4 years ago, Max, who was 21, close in age, although to very different circumstances. He had a brain tumor. But nonetheless, we share a very similar story of how my husband and I, and you and your husband, chose to continue our lives after this devastating losses that we've had. We too felt the need to help others rather than bury our head in the ground. We've also been very involved in philanthropy as well and helping and to improve the world. We need to meet because, I mean, what you were saying was everything that I've been saying and doing as well. Pretty amazing that way. But we also established in Israel through Jewish National Fund at Ali Negev, a state-of-the-art rehabilitative village for the most severely disabled from birth to death. It's called the Max Paul Volunteer Program, enabling primarily Americans to be able to go over and volunteer, and from 16 on up for any length of time. And from what I've heard from those that have participated, they do gain a lot more than they do give. And that's part of what we've been doing. Now, through Jewish National Fund Women for Israel, we are really enhancing the lives of every Israeli throughout the country on a daily basis in a very meaningful ways as well. We have our Sapphire Society, which is committed women, very committed women who give a minimum of $5,000 a year and receive this beautiful Tree of Life pin/pendant as an annual gift. Every year they give, they get a diamond included as well. We've established an $1,800 amount called our Chai Society, and we also give this beautiful State of Israel pendant for those. And then we have a minimum of our Women's Alliance, who are really just entering our sisterhood, so to speak, at a minimum of $360 a day, less than $1 a day. So anyway, to learn more about our women's campaign, I really encourage you to go to jnf.org/Women for Israel. I also want to share with you another wonderful opportunity to come visit Israel virtually, since unfortunately right now we can't be there physically. This is a women's only Queen of Sheba mission, June 1st through 5th, which is led by our Women for Israel president, Myra Fleischer. We're going to be visiting iconic landmarks and projects that are supported by our women's campaign. Again, you can register for that at jnf.org/Queen of Sheba virtual tour. Israel needs us more than ever now, as tourism is 40% of its economy, and there is no tourism. So I highly recommend joining this virtual trip. Truly the next best thing than being there physically. And all the proceeds are going to our fabulous guides who obviously have been out of work. And it's been a wonderful program. Over 1,100 have already gone, and we're booked till July, and it's going on. So please join us. The projects that we're supporting are also still in need of our funds. So this is Women's Month, as was mentioned earlier. We have a very generous donor, women donor, actually, out of Arizona, who is willing to match any donation, which includes pledges, up to $1 million if it's made during this month of May. So I truly encourage you. Again, it could be a pledge as well at any amount that you possibly can give. So I invite you to join me and hundreds of women throughout the country that are truly making a difference every day in the lives of Israelis. And thank you, Orange County, Women for Israel, for giving me the honor of closing a fabulous month of virtual events for women and for pairing me with Jeanne Bernstein, truly an inspiration to us all, from strength to strength. Toda rabah. And now just a few words from JNF.
During this time of social distancing, Jewish National Fund USA wants to help you feel closer to Israel. If you like today's call, you'll love our #1 podcast, Israelcast, a show featuring inspiring guests from the land of Israel. New episodes come out every other week at jnf.org/Israelcast, or simply Google Israelcast. You can also stay engaged and connected by watching other great Jewish and Israel-related content at youtube.com/Jewish National Fund. Have a wonderful day.